Hey everybody, it's Rockula, and welcome back to Rockula Retrospective. This is the first episode of a new series that I call From the Drummer's Perspective. Now what it's going to be is a combination of two different kinds of reviews. One is the actual music reviews that I see people doing, and some of you guys are going into great detail about things. And what I'm going to try to do with these music reviews is not make them so detail-oriented and more easier for the layman to understand. And two, I'm watching a lot of drum covers out there. So in addition to explaining what I'm talking about, I'm also going to cover the song. And a little side note about that, I'm not going to be doing actual note-by-note translations because it's just impossible for me to do. I can't play like any other drummer, so it's going to have to be close enough. But so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to talk to you about the band, talk to you about the music, talk to you about the things that they did to kind of influence things, and then I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. So here comes episode 1 of Rockula Retrospective from the drummer's perspective. So once the 70s turned into the 80s and punk started morphing into hardcore, you had bands that were adding more progressive elements to punk music. The three bands I'm going to cover in this episode are going to be the Dead Kennedys, the Bad Brains, and Victim's Family. And all of them showed different variations of the Staggered Punk Beat. In the late 70s, when punk was first starting to lose its steam for the first time, a lot of people started to see that the standard punk beat was getting a little bit boring for them. And the standard punk beat is going to be the average rock beat, you know, like a 4/4 beat, but just sped up. The Ramones did this a lot, and the Sex Pistols, and a lot of the early bands, other than, you know, The Damned, Rat Scabies was a really good drummer, so he didn't just play the punk beat, but most people were just playing that straight ahead 4/4 beat. And here's an example of that beat. The Bay Area in the late 70s produced a band called the Dead Kennedys. Now, if you were going to put a classification on them, I would say progressive surf punk. They really outstripped everybody in the 70s punk category and really ushered in a new era for hardcore. And the album that I'm going to take my first cover from is called Bedtime for Democracy. And this song is called Hop with the Jet Set. Let's head over to Washington, D.C., and a reggae band is listening to the Sex Pistols for the very first time. It just blows them away, and it makes them decide that they're going to completely change the direction of their music and become a punk band. The result is a Rastafarian hardcore punk band called the Bad Brains. And the song that I'm going to cover from them is called Pay to Come. Now, there are several versions of this song on the early releases of the Bad Brains. There's the Roar Sessions and my least favorite version of the Bad Brains, Pay to Come. Then there's a second version, which is actually the very first version that I heard off of Let Them Eat Jelly Beans. And then the third version I heard was on Black Dots. Now this is the song that I was gonna cover because it's kind of fun, and it's got the cowbell, and the cowbell does a steady 8-beat pattern with the snare.
And so now we do the fight to sing for our bloody right, the right to sing the right, the dance, the right, as I would take the chance.
But then I managed to get a copy of the Pay to Come version on Let Them Eat Jelly Beans, and the original version has a staggered, it's staggered just like the Staggered Punk Beat, but it is alternating double strokes with cowbell and snare. And I like that, but I wanted to challenge myself a little bit, so what I did is I kind of morphed the two songs together, and I'm doing kind of like a sped up 8th beat version of the Black Dots on the Pay to Come version. So this is both versions squished together. So let's head back over to California in the San Francisco Bay Area. Once again, we have a band from the Petaluma area called Victim's Family. And they took the progressive punk thing and just went through the roof with it. I guess you could call them progressive jazz punk. And they took that staggered beat and did all kinds of really tough things with it. And the song that I'm going to cover from Victim's Family is off of this album called White Bread Blues, and it is a song called D.O.G. Well, that's it for the first episode of Rockula Retrospective from the drummer's perspective. As usual, I'd like for you to like and subscribe down there and share this video. But what I'm most interested in is your comments. I'd like to know, what you think of the stuff that I'm doing, even if you want to troll me. I don't care, you know. Second of all, I'd like to hear what kind of songs you'd like for me to cover. And so I'm going to do lots more of these. Coming up, I'm going to do my second episode, and that's going to be based on the Rockabilly Train beat. I'm Rockula, and this is Rockula Retrospective from the drummer's perspective. See you next time.